Hi guys, this is Tomek, online known as TinyGuy from Miss Trigger, and this is the second game of me playing Prism against Lemur on Viserai. We're still exploring the meta game. This is game 2. I lost game 1, so we decided that I will be starting this game. Um, and we'll see what we can do this time. Unfortunately, no yellow card, no yellow aura, nothing I can really do with this hand. So I just play one aura, arsenal my swing, and just draw up, which is not ideal. I would have preferred either a blue card to take some cards away from their hand, or take a breaker away, which would be pretty fine. But I need to be content with just the blue aura play, which is has bending, which is pretty good. It's one of the better auras. I think it's on par with shimmers. In some matchups better than shimmers, because it can prevent a lot of damage and present a lot of damage. When you have two of those on the field, it gets pretty disgusting. So I will rewind for a second because I didn't see what he took. Okay, so Sonata taking Command and Conquer into hand, taking one Arcane. Um, I should have probably prevented the Arcane, as I have a lot of blue cards in my hand, but I'm guessing I'm sinking this turn, so that might be the reason I didn't prevent the arcane damage, and it comes back to bite me in the ass because of the meet and greet, which wouldn't have go again if I just prevented the arcane damage. So I sank the card. No yellow card still. And there's a Revel with a Amplify the Arc Knight. So not preventing the one arcane damage from the Sonata just turned out terribly wrong. Um, it couldn't have turned out worse, I think. So all of that with just one resource being used. So I'm thinking, how can I salvage this as best I can? So I just prevent 3 arcane, uh, took the 3, prevented 3 from the attack, took 3, and this is because I want to play my aura and have my metamorph for the next turn, because my tunic ticks up to 2 this round. I will be able to play my second Hezbaiting, which is pretty gross. Arsenal 1 card and then draw my hand. And I drew nuts. As you can see, I have 2 Metamorphs, a Warching Herald, a yellow card, and I will have my Tunic at 3 on the next turn, as well as finishing with a Shimmers of Silver. So depending on what the Viserai player does this turn, if he doesn't present anything substantial, I will just take everything and just swing back with my whole turn. We'll see what Lemur figures out here. We're also testing if the Iron Wave is better than the Tunic. The reason being the one block being better used yearly and then able to generate 2 resources instead of 1. We're still not sure about that. We're not even sure if Viserai has place in this meta at all. The upside of the other with is as well that with the boots you can block 6 from your equipment, so to prevent any command and conquers, which is also pretty substantial if that ever comes up. So Lemur is probably thinking what he wants to do. He needs to get rid of those haste bending as soon as possible, because as soon as I start playing other auras, it will get really nasty for him. So he's playing an E-Strike for 5 with Gargan probably up, so I don't think, just take the raw damage, it doesn't matter for me. He's pitching, creating a rune chant, and swinging into my haze bending. So both of the haze bendings will trigger, uh, creating 2 spectral shields, and I have a gross hand. We'll see if he decides to Arsenal. He Arsenal, so that tells me this wasn't a breaker card, so a 6 power card. I will just praying that he doesn't have a um, breaker anymore. But we're still starting mm, with the Metamorph, so if he does have a breaker, I'm still fine with that, because I still can salvage a pretty good turn, copying my haze bendings, which he doesn't want to happen, because, as I mentioned, the more the haze bendings there are, the nastier it gets. So we'll beginning 7 with Go again. Metamorph, one of the better cards added in Everfest for the Prism. It's pretty good. It's basically a 7 unblockable damage most of the time. So I swung with Haze Bending, Aura, and then played another Metamorph, which is nasty. There we go, we're pulling the other wave because it's still on the chain. Doesn't matter really, but it's best to keep the board state clean. We'll see what Lemur decides to do here. He didn't block the first one, but this presents a lot of damage, so it's already how much? 7 plus 7 plus 3. That's 17 damage already presented this turn, which is a lot. That's the tempo swing turn, if I've ever seen one. And depending if he breaks my Herald here, if he breaks the Metamorph here, or if he doesn't, he probably doesn't want to, even if he has a breaker. So I will either continue with my War Tune or play Shimmers onto the board. So that's a blue Amplified Arcanite, so there will be no break here. He will take 4 from the attack. So in that case, I'm saying screw it. We'll see if he has a breaker. So I will be presenting 7 more damage, because in case he doesn't have a breaker, that's 7 more damage. That's a lot. And I will be able to play my Shimmers if he doesn't break it. If he breaks it, well, that's one less card in his hand, and I will be able to arsenal my Shimmers, which is also pretty good. I don't mind arsenaling my Shimmers at all. We'll see what Lemur decides to do here. But he's thinking well for this, so that's why I'm expecting no breaks on the War Tune, which is pretty good, because if he doesn't use his equipment, that's also the first soul for me, which is important in those matchups, to have at least one soul to be able to swing with the board, because you want to develop the board and then you need to be able to swing the board. And the best one card hand is especially yellow card to create a spectral shield, and then just to swing with the whole board, which is important to keep in mind to not use them aggressively. If you're able to build your soul across the span of the game, that's fine to use it if you have leftover resources, or if you want to just take the tempo, it's okay to take the resource from the tunic to get a spectral shield. So he takes whole 7 damage. I end with Shimmers, and he wasn't exactly happy with this turn, because I did 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 3 and ended with an aura. So that's 24 damage and aura onto the board, which is pretty nasty. Okay, so now he's playing Rattlebones, targeting mid and grid, which I'm pretty fine with. And then he plays Marvin Skies, and that's the point where I stop him. And now I'm considering if it's worth to play my Arclight Sentinel or no. Because when he targeted just the mid grid, I wasn't so keen on playing my Sentinel. There we go. He put it into the banish zone, as it should be. I wasn't as keen as to playing the Arclight Sentinel, because I was able to block the mid and grid pretty efficiently. I think we figured out that the Amplified Dark Knight was a better hit with the Rattle Bounce, either if I do or don't have Sentinel because of the Maurian Skies. So we switched those up. And I decided to play my Sentinel. The one floating is pretty important because if he decides to swing with the attack action card, which he has banished, I will be able to prevent one of the arcane damage that will be coming from the rune chants. And I assumed he would do it because if he doesn't, the banish card just gets wasted. So it's better to, depending if he wants to leave the rune chance for the next turn, if he needs 2 or 1, because he will still create one of the rune chants from the Viserai trigger. And depending if those 2 rune chants are needed or not, he's able to decide what he wants to do. So we decided to swing with the thing. I created a spectral shield from my hezbending, preventing one of the arcane. So I'm basically net 0 on soul shields. He created that rune chant, and he will end with the arsenal. I'm pretty okay with that. He wasted one of the rattle bones, which is a power card for Viserai. And I'm still able to swing with my shimmers. I'm swinging with shimmers instead of haze banding to give my opponent choices. So he either has to choose that I will have 1 additional spectral shield for my haze banding if he decides to destroy my shimmers, or if he wants to destroy my haze banding, my shimmers will hit for 3 next turn, which hurts a lot. If you leave shimmers on the board for too long, it oftentimes gets out of hand. In this matchup, you don't really want to attack with your spectral shields when Shimmers is on board first, because of the arcane damage that is coming in. You need to decide to block the arcane damage fully this turn, and the attacks as well if you want to keep your spectral shields around. So this is not a matchup that you will be placing your +1 counters on the spectral shields. So Lemur is deciding if he can play his entire hand, or if he wants to just use one of the cards to block it. That will be my guess. So now we have a pretty good board with his betting shimmers to spectral shields. So we either are looking to preserve the board state or to advance it further with the cards. So we'll see what we got here. Okay, so we have a lot of choices, and we'll see what we go for here. So I have 3 blue cards, one of them being a aura and a parable of humility. So yep, I decide to block the arcane damage and then take the rest of the damage. That's fine. I probably should play Parable now. Yep, there we go. It's better to play the Parable now, having 1 floating remaining, and take 1 less from that. And the Parable gives even more choices for my opponent to decide what they want to do. And on my turn, I can play my 3rd haze bending, which I was pretty fortunate to draw. Or I can just attack with shimmers if it stays on board to push some more damage. So we'll see what comes after that. There's any strike, probably 5 with guidance, probably 4, so I'm not even thinking of taking the damage. Which is another mistake. I should have blocked with my boots, because it was basically a free block. There was a possibility of him playing Razor Reflex, destroying my boots. But if that would be the case, he would probably pick 5 with draw a card and not go again to possibly push the Razor Reflex, go again for that. So I was pretty comfortable with blocking the boots there, so that was a slight misplay on my part. I decided to play my haze bending, preserve my board state more, instead of pushing damage, which I think is a good idea, especially since the his banning will create a spectral shield, and I haven't seen a lot of Ultras yet from my deck, so I'm expecting to draw into them sooner than later. So any aura on the board is worth 2 damage, which is pretty good considering the boards that we're in. We'll see what the Runeblade player can figure out from their hand. Thinking so probably a Become or a Moderate Tide and just sequencing. And he also needs to keep in mind if I have a Arclight Sentinel, it can just basically end the game on the spot. If I have 2 blues, a Arclight Sentinel, and a yellow card, that's a big swing. Okay, so that's a Maverick Skies. I bluff a little, tell him to wait for a second, and then say go ahead. There we go. Yep, that's bluffing the Arclight Sentinel. It's okay to do sometimes. Don't abuse it because then opponents won't respect it. I have Parable on the board, so I'm pretty comfortable with blocking just for 3. There's the Viserai and the Rune Chant from playing a non-attack before playing the attack. Dread Triptych, there we go, that's the name. And there's Revel, which is a awful card. I hate Revel when I'm playing Prism against Viserai. And that's another card I hate, with Gloomveil being it. That's how much damage? 7 Arcane, which I probably take all of it. Yep, and then we remember there's a Spectral Shield, so I put it up. Yep, exactly. I don't care about the Arcane damage, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't change anything, and it's too expensive for me to block it, especially since my Tunic is being ticked up. So that's it. I decided to block with my Skull Cap, because next turn I'm probably putting him under my health threshold. So my guess was it was one of the last opportunities to be able to play it. And he pops his Either Whiff to be able to swing with the Rosetta into my Hezbending, which creates a Spectral Shield. So I should be ticking up my Tunic up to 3. Yep, and we remembered that there was a Revel plate, so the Rune Chats get destroyed as well. Yep. So Tunic ticks up. And right now I'm in the driver's seat. I'm dealing the damage. That's my tempo turn, which should be a lot of damage, ending with a aura. He won't be able to break it. I mean, he can break it, amplify, and CNC won't be able to break it because of the Power of Humility, but off of the 9 Blade as well as Runic Reclamation are still able to pop those. So there's a swing for 3, he blocks 3 with the equipment, 1-1, and then playing Passing Mirage onto the board, which is pretty good in this situation, because Passing Mirage is not a priority aura right now for the Viserai player, as Parable and Shimmers are much more scarier than that. So the free Herald would be pretty good, but this is an unfortunate hand. There's a Sonata pitching a Arknight Shard, so creating a Rune Chant, and I'm thinking probably for a second if I want to play my my thingy, my Arclight Sentinel, by letting it resolve. I think it's fine. Flipping 4 cards, hitting 1, but it's a Gloomveil, so that's the best hit in the deck probably. I'm not preventing any damage. I figured out that the shield is getting popped anyways this turn, I won't be blocking all of his damage since I want to use my erudition potentially next turn, depending on what the rest of the turn looks like. Also playing a second Parable is fine. Preserving one card and then swing with the whole set of auras next turn is also a possibility, since my opponent has one block on his Skull Cap, one block on his gloves, and one block on his boots. I will probably be dropping below his health threshold, so the Skull Cap won't be active, but he can still block my Erudition Wave 3 block card, the gloves and the boots. So it's not really that important to be able to push it. We'll see what I decide here. I will probably take the Arcane. I'm still considering blocking it, since there is a possibility of a Revel. Not a Revel, but Rattle Bones. And I decided to block it. I don't know what happened here, if I rewind it a little bit. Okay, so I guess I just didn't get myself 1 HP. I decided to block the Arcane, but then didn't add the HP, so that's a error from our side. Okay, so I decided to play a Parable. So the Gloom Valley is coming for 2 with Go Again, which I'm more than happy to just take. And we'll see if there's anything else coming after that, or if it's just a Rosetta swing. And we'll see if on my turn I decide to Arsenal my Erudition, which is a possibility, or if I just swing with the whole board, making 1 Spectral Shield. Let's see what Lemur decides to do here. There we go, swinging with Rosetta into Shimmers, yep, because this will be a lot of damage if he doesn't destroy it. So that's probably a smart idea. So that's why I was comfortably playing the second Purple of Humility, because he wasn't killing me this turn. And I was able to preserve all of my auras. That helped me with pushing damage. Okay, so I swing for 1, so this will be probably a Spectral Shield getting created on resolution. Remember, you don't need to create it first, you can wait for it to deal damage, and then on the Chainlink resolution step, you can pitch your yellow card to create a Spectral Shield, and the attack will gain Go Again. So this is a play that doesn't reveal what you're doing, so the opponent needs to choose from the first attack without any information being given. So we'll see if he decides. He decides to block with the Skull Cap, and I'm deciding if 3 damage and a Spectral Shield is worth it, or if I want to just arsenal the Erudition for next turn. I decided to go for it. Swing 1, swing 1, swing 1, and then pass. So there were pros and cons for this play. I'm pushing more damage this way, and I'm also being more safe with the Spectral Shield on board. But if I did enjoy, there we go, another pretty awkward hand. This is not the hands that I want to be seeing this late into the game. This late into the game, I want to be seeing more Heralds when I have my board established already. I think I laughed a little because I saw my 3rd Parable of Humility in hand, which is also a possibility this turn. Coming back to the previous turn, there were pros and cons of creating the Spectral Shield, because currently I have no soul. So if I, for example, drew no Heralds, I have no turn basically, because I won't be able to do anything. I need to preserve all of my hand to be able to play a yellow aura, to be able to swing with the whole board, which is probably what I would do anyway. But I think both of the plays had their pros and cons. ultimately I think I decided on pitching for the Spectral Shield because of the armor. As I mentioned, he still has his gloves and his boots, and I probably won't be dipping down below his health at this point. So it doesn't matter, he blocked with his cool cap. So that's why, yeah, because of that I also decided to pitch it. So I can just put more damage on the board, make his life harder, and just assume I will draw one of the heralds to be able to finish out the game. Which might have been a misplay, I'm not sure. Also with the heralds you need to keep 2 cards in your hand, and with the soul being charged you need just 1, which is a big difference as well. For example, if I had my soul, I could have just pitched 2 cards to play my 3rd parable, and then pitched a yellow card on my turn to be able to swing with the board. So I think I'm happy with that decision. It could definitely be played a different way, but it's pretty good. Lemur is thinking a while on his decisions, probably cursing me for having 2 parables on board. I'm also laughing because I have a 3rd one and a sentinel in hand, so I'm just intimidating him on the call. We'll see what he figures out with his hand. He still has the boots, but at this point they don't make a lot of difference. He plays Become the Arc Knight, I allow it. I won't be playing my Arclight Sentinel. Then he discards a attack to search a non-attack. We'll see what he takes out. And probably Maurian Skies, yep. And at this point, if he plays the Maurian Skies, I'm thinking about the Sentinel. And yep, there we go. Snap into Sentinel, especially since it's a red Maurian Skies. So I had 3 cards in my head that don't block, and a 3-card block. 3 block cards, sorry. So my thought process was I didn't draw a good aggro hand. So if I'm able to just skip my opponent's turn, which Sentinel basically does, because there's nothing, he can be playing lead the charge, but I haven't seen any of those, so I assumed he just doesn't. And even if he does, that's still lead the charge from hand, and then an attack from then pitch and then attack. So that's 3 cards already. And since he tuttered with the Become the Arc Knight for a Maurian Skies, I just guessed that he doesn't have it in his hand. So I just played my Sentinel to just basically skip his turn and to be able to draw myself into a better aggro hand or into my out to Wrath, because out with this board state is pretty much game winning. If I can keep it. We'll see what happens here. If he decides to attack with a attack action card to kill one of my spectral shields of his rune chance, or if he decides to just swing with the Rosetta and keep the rune chance for next turn. We'll see what he does here. And also with that play I'm able to preserve my 2 parables, so on his next turn I still have the protection of 2 parables of humility, which is pretty massive. That's a lot of damage being soaked up. Okay, so there we go. That's a it's a meet and greet. Yep. So I take one spectral shield, and I tell him to pop his rune chance because they went. I will probably correct that in a second. Yep, there we go. Explaining what happened. He knew what happened, but just forgot to take it away. On my turn, tuning up, swing for 1. There we go. That's the basic play pattern. The tunic is pretty... there we go. I'm looking for the power cards, which ones are remaining. So 1 Become, 2 Revels, 2 Gloom Veils. So I know, and 1 Rattlebones. So I need to be aware of Rattlebones, Becomes, and there were no Mordred Tides played as well. This is a better hand. I'm looking what's in my discard pile. So I saw 3 Metamorphs, and I know I have still plenty of Fortunes left to be able to push damage. And that's what I was probably looking for. The hand could be better, sure, but I'm not complaining about this hand. I have a lot of plays to make. I can either pitch 2 of my Heralds to play my Merciful, start pinging him with arcane damage, and build my soul, or I can just pressure him with the Heralds by themselves. So there we go, Mordred Tide and Become, creating 2. I'm probably discarding a non-attack. There we go, I'm bluffing again that I have the Sentinel. I'm telling him to wait for a second, and I say, sure, go ahead. Discarding a Revel, so that's the 3rd Revel, which I was happy to see go. And that tells me that he doesn't have any other attack in hand, because if he had, he would probably keep it to be able to play the Revel from the boots. So I'm guessing that's another non-attack in his hand, as well as Arsenal. And there we go, Swarming Gloomveil for 4. Creating 2 rune chants. For 4, sorry, for 2, because of the 2 parables on board. So that's 2 arcane and 2 damage. I'm thinking about the possibility of Rattlebones, but at this point, with the 2 parables on board, I'm pretty sure he won't be able to kill me. So I just took everything. And we'll see. That's also the 3rd Swarming Gloomveil, so I'm pretty sure. So we had an attack, which was possibly a misplay on his point. The turn could have been played better, but we'll never know. There we go, that's the Herald of Judgment, and we decided to pressure because we have Passing Mirage on board, which prevents from popping. And we'll see what happens here. Also, when this hits, it will prevent the Rattlebones. There we go, we took 6, so that's fine. Swing 1, take 1, swing 1, take 1. Yep, and then Tunic 6. I'm aware that it can be popped, but this is the time to be pushing damage. Viserai has multiple 2-block cards. Sonata, Movian Skies. I think that's it, to be honest. Revel, I think, also blocks 2. So there are some of the cards. He does have a Popper, which doesn't get reduced by Parable, because it's a 7. I mean, it gets reduced, but it gets reduced down to 6. So it doesn't really matter about the popping. And that's fine. We see what we get here. There are some options here as well. There we go, there's a Rosetta, just coming into my Passing Mirage, which is a weird choice for me, but he just probably is high rolling at this point. So I also will be high rolling. I played my Genesis. I will sell 1, create a Spectral Shield token, draw 1. And there we go, that's a yellow card, so that's a 4 damage turn. So we'll see how he manages that. I should have probably checked how many of the runic reclamations were used, and possibly just keep 2 cards in hand and just then swing and arsenal a reaction. There we go, I swung, I took the damage, and he's at 1, and I just saw my hand, and that's probably game, withdrawing 2 Archons, as well as the Oath, so we'll see what Lemur decides to present for us, damage-wise, and if it isn't lethal, I will be perfectly fine. So Marvion Skies, amplify the Arc Knight, say red one probably. We'll see what happens here. My guess is preventing some arcane damage and then blocking like 4, probably with the boots and the and one of the war tunes, and then leaving a yellow card and a war tune in hand. We'll see what we do here. Yep, so prevent 2 arcane, have 1 floating. I still have my tunic as well, which I can use for block, because I won't be getting much use of the tunic. There we go. So block 4. And take 1 Spectral Shield because of Parable. I think it was fine to block with the tunic as well. To preserve 1 more Spectral Shield to possibly be able to just finish the game. Depending on what swing he does here. Be maybe able to know what that card is. Okay, so that's CNC. So that's pretty unfortunate. And he swung CNC into my aura to pop my Spectral Shield as well. So that's fine for me. We'll be drawing, tuning up, drawing up. He managed to clear the board pretty good. But I will be swinging for 6 with go again. Seeing if he has a breaker. He does. So I'll pay for the action point. Swing with Parable. Take his boots as at least. There we go. And that's a 3-card Viserai. There's a Gorganian Tome, which I'm pretty unhappy seeing. He asked me if I play anything in response. I said that's fine. Let him draw a card. And I have a... I think that was the 3rd reclamation of Parable being on board. And I see I have a Erudition in hand, which is game ending, since the Viserai plating doesn't play any defense reactions. Any at all. And if he would be playing, he would need to be playing Unmovables, which are not a good fit right now for Viserai. There we go, that's an oath. Just to create 2 rune chance and then swing into my Parable arsenal. So he did no damage to me. He's standing up for next turn. I don't know what he arsenaled, but I'm believing him that he didn't threat me any little lethal. So that's what it was. I decided to swing with Erudition. This might have been a misplay. I think it was safer to first play an Aura swing and then swing for Erudition. But I decided that if he does have a breaker, as I shown here, he needs to put 1 card and then I will play Merciful, dealing him 1 arcane and building my soul. And if he doesn't have a blue card, then he needs to pitch 2 more cards to his Skull Cap. So at the least, I'm taking 2 of his cards and building my soul to possibly end it next turn with the additional Spectral Shield, because every 1 damage, so every 1 Spectral Shield takes his life points down to 0, so he needs to expend a card from his hand, as well as playing the Merciful, dealing 1 arcane this turn, takes card from his hand, and every subsequent turn also does it. So probably on his next turn, he needs to swing into my Merciful, prevent the arcane damage from the Skull Cap, so pitching. So if he has a breaker and a blue card, he needs to break it and then pay for the arcane with a blue card. Then his turn, he needs to be able to swing into my Merciful and have a blue card as well to prevent the arcane damage from Merciful. Because if he swings into me, I can just create a Spectral Shield from my soul, and that will be game as well. So it was basically locked this way, which is okay. I think the better play was to first pitch 5, play Merciful, swing for 1, take one of the cards from his hand, and then take the counter from Tunic and swing for 5 with Erudition. So that was a slight misplay. I think the other way around would be much better, as it gives less information to my opponent about me having an Erudition. So I think that would be a better play, but ultimately it doesn't matter, since if I'm not killing him this turn, I'm probably killing him on the next turn. But as we saw, we can also draw all blue hands, so that also might not be the case. So yeah, so it's better to be safe than sorry. So the other way around would be a much better play in my book. So thank you for watching. That was game 2. So we're 1-1, and we'll see each other at game 3. See ya.